So think about this guy, this Michigan state on the state board of canvassers.
Yeah.
Who was, no matter what was said to him, citing the law, citing evidence, he said, well, I have no choice. One guy said, if that's the case, then why are you here and not a rubber stamp for the governor? We can hand the files to him. You exist for a reason. In fact, they had the opportunity to vote. Like, they literally counted the vote 3-0 with one abstaining. It's like, so you could have literally voted no. But this guy wouldn't, and it's really simple why. I've been saying this for quite some time. So you're familiar with Sargon of Akkad, right?
Indeed. I saw that whole thing just happen recently.
Go
ahead.
No, I don't know. What happened? Something happened?
Maybe I have it mixed up.
Well, anyway, he's got a new podcast called The Lotus Eaters, by the way. So shout out Sargon. But I use him as a really good example because he is like the most mild-mannered, offensive guy, that like the social media age has wrought. And here's the example. If Twitter started banning a bunch of people and a bunch of crazy stuff happened, do you think Sargon of Akkad is going to lead a group of liberalists, men, with fedoras and beards, down to Twitter HQ with pitchforks and torches to smash and destroy everything? No, of course not. No. He's sitting in his nice little fancy room with his British accent, giving arguments. If they started going after the left, do you think the left would show up with pitchforks, torches, and bricks?
No, but I do have a counter.
No, the answer is yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
They've done it.
Absolutely.
They literally have done it.
I'm sorry. I had a counterpoint in my head to be an argumentative jerk about it. Laura Loomer, she did show up down at Twitter.
Yes,
not exactly pitchfork.
But is anybody scared of her? She handcuffed her hand to the door.
Yeah.
And she got pressed for it. Yeah. It's probably, honestly, she is one of the best activists, or the best the right has.
Yeah.
And you don't got to agree with her. I think she said ridiculously bombastic things and offensive things, and you don't got to agree. The point I'm making is she always knows how to dominate headlines.
Yeah.
And she does it in such a way that's like nobody's getting hurt, handcuffing herself to Twitter's door. Like, that's just regular old civil disobedience, and it worked.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. This guy, Aaron, he's, a sad, scared little man who, he shouldn't be in a leadership position if you can't handle the heat. It's the sword of Damocles. You want to sit in that chair, the sword sits above you.
How do you even get to that spot? Is it just some appointment? Has he voted in like some weird thing?
The problem is we don't have leaders anymore. Yes. We have very, very few, I should say. And so what happens is, here's a guy sitting there, and he sees what happens. When the Democrat state board, when the two Democrats said, we are going to certify, did Republicans announce where their children lived and threaten them?
So where are you?
Well, the answer is no.
No, I know. Where are you going with this critique?
That the left is violent, terroristic, like Antifa types. These are not even these are like regular Democrats in the community saying, your kids go to school here.
Yeah, no, it's a perfectly normal thing on the left to say all kinds of stuff like that.
And they know that when they say that, Antifa is the cudgel who will show up and act, and they'll say it's what is it called, stochastic terrorism?
Yeah.
They know that they can say, don't your kids go to this school? And then they'll say, now all I have to do is sit back and wait for Antifa to show up, because they'll do it. I don't got to tell them. So this guy's terrified. He's absolutely terrified. The other guy abstained. He didn't even say no. These people are spineless. So you have aggressive, angry, violent, deceitful leftists, and you have scared conservatives saying, just please leave me alone.
Right. And I agree with you. The ineffective, wimpy guys like that, or leaders of any kind, shouldn't be there. We need stronger leaders. We need masculine energy. We need all kinds of new force. However, I just want to make sure I understand this. The left does play dirty. Are you suggesting the right should play strong or play dirty too?
They got to be smarter. They got to be smarter. So look, I've grown up playing strategy games, and what the left is doing is aggro. Their strategy is hard and fast. Strike them, hit them low, hit them fast, get it done. The Republicans got to play control better. They have to understand, exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make threats. They're going to come for your family. You need to know their move before they do it. And so that, Bruce Lee, move like water. When they come at you, spin around, flip it on them. Turn the energy back on them. You did.
Yes.
It's exactly what you did.
Yes.
They came at you and they made you 10 times stronger, 100 times stronger.
Yes.
That was a mistake.
And counting.
That's what more people on the right need to be doing. So it's not about playing dirty. It's about, I'm reminded of this episode of Frasier. You ever watch Frasier?
I sure did. I watched Cheers and then Frasier.
All right. So there's an episode where I guess Frasier is having a bad day. and he has his normal table at the coffee shop, and he's got his coffee sit down. He goes up to grab some creamer or something, and a guy sits in his chair, and he gets angry and he says, "Sir, this is my seat," and the guy tells him to F off. So Frazier just says, "I'm having a bad day, I'm not having it," picks the guy up and throws him. So eventually this guy sues him, knowing he's like a radio host, he has money, and Frazier can't do anything about it. So eventually they end up meeting back at the coffee shop, and then Niles gets in his face, and then starts pressuring him and insulting him, and then the guy says, "Back off, man," and pokes his chest, and then Niles goes, "Whoa," and falls over and slams onto the floor, and then he goes, "Countersuit, countersuit," and then the guy backs off and says, "Okay, I give up." Mm-hmm. The joke was, and he was like, "I didn't do anything to him." He's like, "Well, we all watched you touch him. That's it. You're gonna get sued." Niles got the suit shut down by playing the same game the other guy was playing.
Got it.
So I'm not saying, definitely not. Republicans should not be going out doing Antifa stuff. Antifa shouldn't be doing that either.
Right.
But what do you do if the DA will cut these people loose? Boom, like that. Because they got elected in the first place.
Well, they have a whole infrastructure. You and I talked about this many times, and I take extra special pleasure now in documenting legal defense fund folks.
Oh, yeah.
When they're out there in the protests, copying down the officers' badge numbers and giving out bail numbers and helping people get out of jail. And as you said, not being there to observe both parties, but actually there as an advocate for Antifa.
Yep.
They have a whole network that encourages them. They get out of jail. They're not prosecuted. It's a whole system. We don't have that system because we adhere to the system of the rule of law, and we expect that if you destroy property or federal property, you're going to go away to federal prison.
So what do you do if you're playing Monopoly?
Yeah.
And the person across the table, every so often you see him swipe 100 from the bank, and you go, "Dude, I saw you do that," and you'd be like, "What are you talking about?" "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm allowed. I'm the banker." Eventually, do you stop playing?
I mean, you're putting me in a tough spot, Tim, because I'm the kind of guy that would either confront or just completely ignore.
Flip the table.
Well, just, I like to pick my moments of aggression like that, and sometimes it's just not worth it. But the alternative here of just like getting up and walking away from the board game, that's easy. I can do that. I can be like, "Dude, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I'm not going to play this game anymore.
Cheating.
I'm out," and then just leave. We do not have that luxury.
No, that's that exists in the real world, and that's the scary. That's the hitting the ground moment. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We're at a point where
we've
seen the evidence. There is so much evidence of, first, irregularity. Because fraud, we got to figure out who did it and is it definitive. So following Matt Brainerd of the Voter Integrity Fund, he recently put out a database, like screenshots of Excel of people all using the same commercial address as their residential address.
Some of them even post offices.
Yeah. So the response to that was that they were using their mailing address as their residential address. So that could be a mistake, right? Mm-hmm. But some of these addresses were just like, one of them I think was like a shopping mall or something. Like, okay, and the difference is they say apartment on them. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna use the same address and then call it apartment number to make it seem like it's a real residence, that's fraud. That's evidence of fraud outright.
One of the things that he pointed out that struck me was that in, I think, Wisconsin, I believe, there is a particular clause that says if you are indefinitely confined, you can get an absentee ballot and not have to show ID. And it's like some X amount.
169,000 people indefinitely confined.
Right. In previous years, it had been some tiny fraction of that.
In 2018, I think it was like 16,000.
And he specifically noted that Corona was not an indefinite confinement. So that's one area where you don't need to use an ID. So, of course, that's a perfect vector for cheating.
That is the best evidence so far of fraud, in my opinion, was that people put bunk addresses. If you take an address for a Dairy Queen and then put apartment number on it, yeah, we know what you're doing. That's fraudulent.
Some of them were even the post office.
But the argument there is that,
wait, you have like a P.O. box?
Yeah. So their mailing address was incorrectly listed as their residential address.
I see.
See. I'm not saying it's definitively true. That's what happened, but you can explain it away.
Right.
You can't explain away someone listing a shopping mall as their residence.
Right.
Like, and was like 1,000 of them, all with the same address going down with unit number, apartment number, just like different ways to qualify. Like, this is actually, it's not a residence. So there clearly is evidence of fraud. Now, it's not definitive proof. It could be very simple. At this one shopping mall, somebody has a mailbox. or something like that. And then again, confuse their mailing address. Someone pointed out that you actually, like in some instances, you can put your mailing address as your residence on some form or something and maybe got mixed up. But you can explain it.
Yeah.
But the point is, we have all of this evidence. And going back to the hitting the ground moment, the fact that Republicans held a hearing at a Wyndham means the split has happened.
Right.
Why aren't they having that meeting in an official government building?
Right.
Because they're now operating parallel to the government.
Don't say it, Tim.
Why not?
The beginning of the shadow.
Well, CNN ran a segment where this deranged guy said Trump's going to form a shadow government. I wouldn't call it a shadow government, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump says, if you support me and you believe me to be your president, I will be leading a movement. He could.
Yeah.
And it could operate within the confines of the law, but it could have powerful and massive impacts across the country.
People have accused Obama of running a shadow government, shadow presidency this whole time, living but merely a mile away from the White House in Colorado and Washington, D.C., near Bezos. Bezos, who bought a museum, dude. He bought a museum and turned it into his private residence in downtown Washington.
If we have to have hearings at Wyndham hotels because we can't have them in actual legal buildings with legitimate legal proceedings, then it shows you that people are no longer confident in one unified system. The government exists based on one thing, confidence. That people think in their minds the machine exists and the machine will churn along. You start to realize then when you see a judge in PA issue ridiculous rulings, or you start to hear the state canvass guy in Michigan repeatedly just say, I can't do it, even though we got the law in front of him saying he literally can. And it's like, dude, you're lying. Why are you like, you literally can. The guy read you the law 3 times, desperately trying to say, I can't, shows you the laws become meaningless. For the past year, we have seen Antifa get away with smashing things up and destroying things and burning things.
Felony,
Black Lives Matter
arson, felony assault, assault with a deadly weapon, murder.
And so
let's not sugarcoat it.
Well, but the most violent people did get arrested and get charged
in
stuff.
that regard. Yeah.
But we had thousands of people across the country who were arrested and released immediately. Hundreds in Chicago, hundreds in New York and Dallas-Fort Worth, who had their charges dropped, misdemeanor charges. So then what's the point of the law if these people can go out and smash things and get away with it? What's the point of the law if Antifa can literally organize terroristic events on Twitter with no repercussion? And they've been doing it nonstop for a year. At a certain point, Republicans got to say the law doesn't actually mean anything because it doesn't get enforced. Then they're going to show up to a Wyndham hotel to have their hearing on voter fraud because they're rallying among themselves saying, we know this is true. And it doesn't matter if the official building or the Democrats think it is or isn't. So at a certain point, there's not necessarily a shadow government, but I've been saying this for quite some time with the censorship. They are pushing to create parallel economies by stripping people away of their financial institutions and communications. So now we have parallel social media growing faster than ever. Parler, over 10 million users now. You have, like I mentioned, hearing in a hotel. Like an official proceeding, it looked like it was a Senate hearing, but they were doing it in a hotel, which is crazy. And you have CNN worried about Trump forming a shadow government. But there are people who say legitimately Trump won and we know it. And they're not. You had Rhodes of the Oath Keepers say that he believes Trump supporters, half the country, will not regard anything out of anything out of Biden's mouth as legitimate. So it's like the fracture has happened.
Yeah.
We smacked the ground, boom, it's done.
Yeah, these parallel circumstances, economies, information markets, networks, associations, these are all happening. This is all part of the trend of decentralization and strategic disconnection. Instead of us all being in the same thing with no borders and no boundaries and totally connected to everyone everywhere at all times, we are going to start retreating. Some of it's deliberate in an offensive way from the other side to silence us or separate us from the mainstream or whatever the case. But some of it is coming from our side too. Some of it is just a natural phenomenon at this point where you want to erect a barrier. You want to have a wall between yourself and the people you care about and the people that you don't know and that you don't have the same level of care for, people who might have it out for you. And eventually we're going to have not just parallel financial systems or economies or labor markets, but decentralized. And it's just sort of all in a big mix, but they're all connected in their own unique ways. And it really is the future of work. It's the future of communication, of finance, where people are going to come together and build their own networks where they can live, work, and play. And this is, this is not, this is sort of a longer term vision.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., so come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.